In the world of R&B and pop music, Aaliyah was riding a wave of growing fame. From her chart-topping hits like Are You That Somebody, Try Again and Rock the Boat, to her flourishing career in acting, Aaliyah captivated audiences with her incredible voice and charm. But on a day that should have been routine, tragedy struck unexpectedly. Join us as we explore the incredible journey of Aaliyah, from her meteoric rise to her untimely demise. Aaliyah Dana Houghton was born on January 16, 1979 in Brooklyn, New York City. Her name is the feminine form of the Arabic Ali, meaning highest, most exalted one and the best, and she truly lived up to it. When she was young, her family moved to Detroit, Michigan, and her mother, who was also a singer, saw Aaliyah's potential and signed her up for voice lessons at just 5 years old. And Aaliyah's talent was clear from the start, as she soon landed a role in her school's play, Annie. This experience sparked her dream of becoming an entertainer, and from then on, she was on her way to becoming a star. She first gained recognition at the age of 10, when she impressed audiences on the TV show Star Search. And performed with the famous Gladys Knight, who was actually married to her uncle. And this was only the beginning, as by age 12, Aaliyah signed with Jive Records and her uncle Barry Hankerson's Blackground Records. Soon after, Uncle Barry introduced her to R. Kelly, who became her mentor as well as her lead songwriter and producer of her debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. However, with the success of Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, rumors began to circulate about a relationship between Aaliyah and R. Kelly, including allegations that they had secretly married without her parents' knowledge. Aaliyah, who was only 15 at the time, allegedly was listed as 18 on the marriage certificate, while R. Kelly was 27.
It's good to know that there's a lot of people out there that don't see nothing wrong with it either.
Aaliyah later admitted in court documents that she had indeed lied about her age. In May 1997, she filed a lawsuit to have all records of the marriage expunged because she was not old enough under state law to get married without her parents' consent. She then also cut off all professional and personal ties with R. Kelly. This whole situation made it difficult for Aaliyah to find producers for her second album. But then, in 1996, she eventually signed with Atlantic Records and began working with record producers Timbaland and Missy Elliott. Missy Elliott remembered how nervous she and Timbaland were to work with Aaliyah because she had already released a successful debut album while they were just starting out. Missy also feared Aaliyah might be a diva, but remembered how Aaliyah came in and was so warm, she made us immediately feel like family. Despite their initial nerves, the album, 1 in a Million, became a huge success, selling 3 million copies in the US and over 8 million copies worldwide. It became one of the most influential R&B albums of the decade, and Aaliyah was described as one of R&B's most important artists during the 1990s. All this time, Aaliyah had still been in school, but in 1997 she graduated with a perfect 4.0 GPA. And that same year she began her acting career, playing herself in the police drama television series New York Undercover. Then in 1999, Aaliyah made her acting debut in the film Romeo Must Die, where she starred alongside martial artist Jet Li, playing a couple who fall in love amid their warring families. Released on March 24, 2000, the movie grossed more than $18 million in its first weekend, ranking number 2 at the box office. Afterward, Aaliyah purposely stayed away from reviews of the film to make it easier on herself, but she was pleased to hear that people connected with her performance. She also contributed to the movie's soundtrack with her single Try Again, which made history by topping the Billboard Hot 100 solely through airplay. After completing the movie, Aaliyah filmed her starring role in Queen of the Damned and released her self-titled third album Aaliyah in July 2001. The album topped the Billboard 200 and featured hit singles like We Need a Resolution, Rock the Boat, and More Than a Woman. Aaliyah was effortlessly balancing her singing and acting careers, making it all look so easy. And while she always considered music her first love, she had also been acting since she was young and knew she wanted to pursue it further when the time was right. By 2001, Aaliyah was signed on for several upcoming films and had already filmed some scenes for the sequels of The Matrix as the character Z. But sadly, fate had a cruel twist in store for her. On August 25, 2001, at 6:50 p.m., Aaliyah and some employees of her record company boarded a twin-engine Cessna 402 light aircraft with registration number November 8097W at Marsh Harbour Airport in the Bahamas, heading for Miami, Florida. Aaliyah and her crew had just finished filming the video for her new hit, Rock the Boat, and even though they were scheduled to leave the next morning, Aaliyah was eager to get back to her boyfriend, Damon Dash, and wanted to catch a private jet as soon as possible. That afternoon, the group got increasingly impatient because the plane was supposed to arrive at 4:30 p.m. but didn't show up until 6:15 p.m. Charter pilot Louis Key reported overhearing a heated discussion between the passengers and the pilot, Luis Morales III, before takeoff. Luis warned them that the plane was too heavy and that it wasn't safe to fly. But despite his concerns, the passengers insisted they needed to be in Miami that night. Reluctantly, the pilot gave in to their demands, even though he had trouble starting one of the engines. However, the pilot was right, since the designated airplane was smaller than the Cessna 404 on which they had originally arrived. And when the pilot shared his reservations, Aaliyah, already a nervous flyer, began to worry. She even refused to board, expressing her fear of the overloaded plane. Adding to the eeriness, just a month prior, Aaliyah had a haunting premonition. In an interview, she mentioned how she had a recurring dream where she felt she was flying away from her problems. "It is dark in my favorite dream. Someone is following me. I don't know why, I'm scared. Then suddenly I lift off, far away. How do I feel? As if I am swimming in the air, free. Nobody can reach me, nobody can touch me. It's a wonderful feeling." Little did she know this dream was a foreshadowing of what would happen on that fateful afternoon. After arguing with the rest of her entourage, Aaliyah retreated to their taxi cab, complaining of a headache, and lay down on the back seat for a quick nap. After a while, one of the passengers was sent to check on her and gave her an unidentified pill with a glass of water. Aaliyah took the pill and fell deep asleep, and she was allegedly still asleep when the pilot finally caved and allowed the team to board the flight back to Florida. They carried her out of the van and onto the plane, unaware of the danger that lay ahead. Aaliyah didn't even know she was being boarded on a plane. Once everyone settled in, the flight took off at 6:50 p.m. For a brief moment, everything seemed fine. The plane taxied down the runway and smoothly lifted off, climbing into the evening sky. But within minutes, the situation turned dire. Witnesses on the ground watched in horror as the aircraft, barely reaching 50 feet, suddenly veered sharply to the left. The serene takeoff transformed into a nightmare as the plane plummeted nose first into a nearby marsh. The impact was catastrophic, and the aircraft erupted into flames upon impact. The violent crash occurred just 200 feet from the runway, leaving a trail of destruction and tragedy in its wake. A pilot who witnessed the crash from about half a mile away saw the Cessna go down. He rushed to get a fire truck and was stunned by what he saw upon arriving at the crash site. It was pretty devastating. The aircraft was broken into pieces and some of the seats were thrown from the aircraft. One of the other first responders described the horrific scene. It was an awful sight. Some bodies were so badly disfigured you couldn't identify them. And two guys were alive, one screaming and screaming for help. He was horribly burned all over. Aaliyah's body was discovered 20 feet away from the wreckage. She was still strapped into her seat, slumped over to her left. She and 7 of the 8 others on board were killed instantly. Only one person, Scott Gallen, Aaliyah's security guard, initially survived, but his injuries were severe and he was in critical condition. Paramedics who arrived on the scene found him in immense pain, and according to them, Scott kept asking about Aaliyah in his final moments, still worried about her even as he was dying. Sadly, Scott passed away shortly after, leaving no survivors from the crash. According to the findings of an inquest conducted by the coroner's office in the Bahamas, Aaliyah suffered from severe burns and a blow to the head, in addition to severe shock and a weak heart. The coroner theorized that she went into such a state of shock that even if she had survived the crash, her recovery would have been nearly impossible. Aaliyah died at the age of 22. As with any aviation disaster, the crash was caused by several factors coming together in a deadly chain of events. The investigation later showed that the plane was overloaded by more than 1,000 pounds and had one more passenger than it was certified to carry. Additionally, reports revealed that luggage wasn't weighed before being loaded onto the plane, and no weight and balance document was found after the crash. But that was not all. The seating arrangement of the passengers is also believed to have played a significant role in the crash. Witnesses reported that two of the heaviest members of the group, each weighing around 300 pounds, boarded the plane first and took seats at the very back. This likely pushed the plane's center of gravity too far to the rear, making it unstable. If these men had sat at the front, the balance might have been better and the plane might not have stalled. But what's most shocking about this crash is that the pilot had falsified records about his experience and qualifications to fly this type of aircraft. He had obtained his FAA license by logging flight hours he had never actually flown, and also falsified the number of hours he claimed to have flown to get the job with his employer, Black Hawk International Airways. But that was not it. Shockingly, the pilot's toxicology report revealed traces of cocaine and alcohol in his system. Just 3 weeks before the crash, the pilot had been arrested for cocaine possession and selling stolen aviation parts and was sentenced to probation. Despite these arrests, he continued flying because pilots have up to 60 days to self-report alcohol or drug-related convictions, and he was still within that window at the time of the crash. But even though several reports questioned his qualifications to fly, his family lawyer defended him, saying he was dedicated and qualified to pilot a Cessna 402B. It turned out he was hired by Black Hawk just 2 days before the crash, and the day of the accident was his first official day. After the crash, the pilot's father stressed that someone should be held responsible for the 9 lives lost, including his son's, noting that his son had been passionate about flying. Because the pilot wasn't registered with the FAA to fly for Black Hawk, Aaliyah's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the company, which was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. In the end, the flight on that summer August evening was illegal from the start. The only person who showed any common sense was Aaliyah, who realized that getting on that overloaded plane wasn't a good idea. Tragically, someone drugged her and carried her aboard, sealing her fate. What followed was a terrible disaster that never should have happened. Immediately after Aaliyah's tragic death, there was uncertainty about whether the Rock the Boat music video would ever be released. However, it made its world premiere on October 9, 2001. Aaliyah's impact was further recognized when she won 2 posthumous awards at the 2002 American Music Awards as Favorite Female R&B Artist and Favorite R&B Soul Album for the album Aaliyah. At the 2001 MTV Video Music Awards, Aaliyah was honored by some of her closest friends and collaborators. Janet Jackson, Missy Elliott, Timbaland, Ginuwine, and her brother Rashad all paid tribute to her, celebrating her life and legacy. As we reflect on Aaliyah's life, we remember her not just as an extraordinary artist, but as a vibrant soul who touched the hearts of millions. Her music continues to inspire, and her influence can still be felt in the industry today. Despite her untimely passing, Aaliyah's spirit lives on through her timeless hits and the memories she left behind.